And we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Deb, would you please call roll?
Counselor Bremen,
Present.
Counselor Purser,
Here.
Counselor Williams.
Here.
Counselor Cry.
Here.
And Counselor Miller is excused absent. Counselor Hansi.
Here. All right, we're going to move into our moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. If you'd stand with us. We'd like to take the opportunity to allow a moment of silence for all faiths and beliefs, the opportunity for a silent prayer. Thank you. If you'd please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there are two changes to the agenda. One is the item number 4C, a presentation from the Business Incubator Center. CEO Delita Bollig is ill, and so we will reschedule that presentation. The second item is an omission. After the consent agenda, there should have been a section for acknowledgement by you of the boards and commissions members that are being appointed or reappointed on the consent agenda.
All right. All right, so we've got those changes. Do we have a motion?
Excuse me, I move to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, would you please poll council?
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Counselor Hansi.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, with that, we're gonna move into our proclamations and presentations. So our first proclamation is proclaiming September 2023 as Suicide Prevention Month, and I've asked Ken to read that for us.
Whereas suicide is a national public health challenge that causes immeasurable pain among individuals, families, and communities across the country. And whereas per 100,000 residents, Mesa County's suicide death rate remains higher than the state and national average. And whereas the county's already high suicide rate increased even more over the last 2 years with a total of 57 deaths in 2022. And whereas a new study from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention described a shift in demographics of those dying by suicide in 2021. And whereas while rates among white Americans have been higher for decades than those among Black, and Hispanic Americans, rates are now rising in minority populations. The report also noted that suicides are happening more often in younger minorities compared to older white adults. And whereas suicide rates rose 5% overall in people ages 25 to 44, and by even more among Black, Hispanic, and multiracial and Alaska's indigenous people. And whereas for every individual who feels alone, ashamed, or believes that they would be a burden if their thoughts or feelings were shared, there are scores of others in every community who want to help but are not sure how. And whereas according to the CDC, financial stress, social isolation, substance abuse, barriers to health care, and access to lethal means like firearms are among the factors that can lead to suicide. And whereas residents of Mesa County can help raise awareness and lower the stigma surrounding suicide by asking friends and family if they are struggling and connecting with them to resources like 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Now, therefore, we, the City of Council for the City of Fruita, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2023 as Suicide Prevention Month.
All right, thanks, Ken. And do we have Abby Landmeyer with the Mesa County Suicide Prevention Coalition here? All right. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Daniels, and I serve on the Mesa County Suicide Prevention Coalition. Our organization is a coalition working to create a community where everyone feels supported in preventing and responding to suicide. Death by suicide is preventable and requires strategies on all levels of society. Thank you, the City of Fruita, for being part of the solution and speaking boldly about how everyone can play a role. We do want to invite everyone in the Grand Valley to be part of the Be the One To campaign. There are 5 simple actions everyone can support: a friend, a family member, or a coworker who is experiencing emotional pain. And those could be the one to ask, be there, help keep them safe, help them connect, and follow up.
All right, well, thank you, Jennifer. Don't sit down yet. Come on up. We did this for you. We'd like to thank you for being here tonight. You can shake everybody's hand. Come on. We're pretty formal around here, right?
you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sounds like Abby got off easy tonight, so. All right. And then you're gonna get out information to Ciara on your events that are coming up, so we can help post those. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we're gonna move into our next presentation. We've got the Chief Executive Officer of Mind Springs, John Sheehan. He's gonna give us a presentation about Mind Springs Health.
I'm going to be pretty brief, bright and gone here. Aaron happens to be our fractional CFO. Is that what we're calling him?
Interim CFO.
Interim CFO. He's been doing great work, and he actually suggested that maybe we needed to get out a little more and talk about some of the things that we've got underway. And I'm sure many of you have heard of Mind Springs. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing in the last year since I've been here. I got here on August 2nd of 2022. And was informed of a few things I wasn't told in the interview process shortly thereafter. So next slide. Just talking a little bit about our mission. Our mission hasn't changed. This is the same mission statement Mind Springs has had, I think, for about the last 13 years. We rebuild lives and inspire hope by providing exceptional mental health and addiction recovery care, strengthening the health and vitality in our communities. Now, one of the things that you do as CEO when you come in is you start working on a strategic plan, and you start working on the way things should be in the future state, right? And that all begins with a mission statement. One of the things that I really felt strongly about related to Mind Springs was that we needed to fundamentally change the way that we operate. And instead of doubling down on sort of the old 1960s mental health model, we really need to create what isn't, and try to look at the landscape of mental health and substance abuse treatment and that idea of mind, body, and spirit. And how do we encapsulate that into a statement that really reflects what we're trying to do in this community, in the other communities that we serve. So if you go to the next slide. So our new vision statement really tries to sort of center on, we don't know where treatment is going. We don't know where brain and behavior are going. We think there's going to be a lot of breakthroughs in the near future. But essentially, Mind Springs needs to be here to help individuals and families achieve healthy breakthroughs in brain, body, and spiritual well-being for the individual, family, and community. And we create healing breakthroughs, right? That idea of healing a patient and their family is different than what we have been doing in the past. We have this modality of care, we have this service we offer, and then here's the edge of the parking lot where we wave goodbye to you, right? We're really trying to focus on a continuum of care, linking services into a system that makes sense, and then working with all the partners that we have in the community to make sure that we get somebody from where they are, which is usually the worst day of their life, and their families, to where they need to be, which is beneficial wellness. And we do that with the patient involved. So they have a lot to say about how that plan works. Next slide. I just want to talk a little bit about our year in review, some of the pillars that we're going to use for our strategy going forward, some of the care innovations that we've put in place in the first year. And then we started a little bit about our new vision statement. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means in terms of how we're approaching integration and really making our services more like a healthcare service than they have been in the past. So Mind Springs is organized essentially into 5 units, which would be West Springs Hospital, Mind Springs Health, the Mind Springs Asset Management Company. Then we have some HUD housing, little Book Cliff apartments. And then we have the Mind Springs Foundation, which is a separate corporation. And so really kind coming in, one of the biggest needs that I saw, and some of you may have read in the press, was there's a very complicated governance system for Mine Springs. We had 4 operating boards, all different members. Those members rarely ever talked. It was really difficult to manage and really siloed. And so one of the things that we did immediately was we made the board the same for all 5 different corporations. So we have one group of people overseeing all of the operations of all the different corporations. And that has made a tremendous difference in terms of our cohesiveness and our ability to, I think, manage what we're here to do, which is provide care to the community a lot better than we have been in the past. So in August through July of 23, so for last year, the thing I'm most proud of is we were able to open a psychiatric emergency room. It's actually the only freestanding psychiatric emergency room in the state of Colorado. And this was in response to some compliance concerns that there were around the hospital not being attached to a medical surgical facility, and just working with CMS. In a previous life, I had run a lot of psychiatric emergency rooms. The model isn't really employed in Colorado, but it was allowable. And so we opened this 8-bed area in the new hospital that we had never operationalized before. Actually got a sally port out back. So law enforcement from all over the area can drop off directly at the psych ER now. They don't need to call ahead. They can just pull up and say, we've got a patient. We take them in. And so we've been seeing around 250 patients a month through the psych ER, which has been a really big improvement, I think, to the access system. Again, getting back to that warm handoff idea, we don't just treat someone in the psych ER and say goodnight at midnight. We're really discharging to a warm handoff, walking them across the parking lot, engaging them in outpatient services, really trying to wrap all of the things that they need around a treatment plan that we try to effectively implement. We've also recruited an entirely new executive team, and you guys can see Dave Conklin's shining face up there. He's our new chief medical officer. And we've done that a little bit from hiring within, a little bit from recruiting new people into the community. So we've had about 3 new executives move to this community. Actually, the latest executive we just hired, who is over the hospital operations, actually living here in Fruita, and his Carlo Pirano, and he's actually working with us in our relationship with Intermountain Health, which I think many of you might have just seen announced. Okay, so we've increased the number of employees related to compliance. Clearly, we've been working on our quality, getting the organization into shape. To me, the bar, though, is not compliance with what the state requires. The bar is really setting a quality standard that is state of the art and is providing excellent care to every patient that we serve in all of the communities that we serve. And so that compliance journey is sort of meets minimum. Let's get into complete compliance with the state, but then let's go past that and really try to set a bar for quality and for integration. Due to our compliance history, so many of you have, obviously seen the articles. I was running a health information exchange in New York State, reading the articles saying, I'm not sure I want to come take this job. But I was ultimately convinced that, we have a state-of-the-art facility in this area, right? And I've built a couple psych hospitals. It's one of the nicest I've ever been in. It has a tremendous capability in terms of an on-site 3.7 detox now. So we've upgraded all of our detox capabilities so we can take people who are at a higher level of detox potential that used to have to go out to St. Mary's. And so we've got this great continuum on the campus. The issue has been it was not operationalized when it was built the way it should have been, right? And so there were a lot of concerns around it being a freestanding hospital. One of the ways that we've allayed that is we agreed to a conditional license and agreed to bring in Intermountain Health to be the manager of basically the nursing care for the hospital, is where the majority of the tags have been. And that's usually the case. And nursing is an issue for every hospital right now. But for a freestanding psych hospital that was never really operationalized the right way, it was an outstanding issue for us for most of the year. And so that's helped us really stabilize things. And really the hospital is in full compliance now. And we've got some bench strength in terms of how we're training our nurses and how we're making sure we have good standard quality and quality practice. Okay. So I talked about the restructure of the board. Our outpatient services are in full compliance with all state regulations. And actually the state came out and said there were no concerns with our outpatient services, which is like the biggest pat on the back I've gotten since I got here. So, they gave us a little love on that. Next slide. Couple of things that we've done. So you've seen pictures of the two child psychiatrists that we have recruited into Grand Junction. They're both telepsychiatrists, but they're both working really hard. Dr. Nandika Paul is an outpatient psychiatrist, one of the best in the country. She's actually on staff teaching at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. She's been a telepsychiatrist for about 10 years. I've worked with her for 7 of those 10 years. And she's providing excellent care to kids in this community. So she's not full. So if you all know of anyone that needs a referral to a psychiatrist, she is available. And then Dr. Henschke actually lives in Jacksonville, Florida. Sees every child in the hospital in Grand Junction. She's also one of the more qualified child psychiatrists in the country. And in particular is boarded in inpatient child psychiatry, which is a difficult specialty to attain. One of the other things that I'm pretty proud of is we now have the ability to provide an appointment same day. And so, and I'm going to ask that you all challenge me on that. Put my money where everything's great in theory, right? But if you call and you don't get an appointment, I want to hear about it. I've got some cards here that I'll leave with you all with my cell phone on it. But the feedback so far is pretty good. If you call Mind Springs, we can get you an appointment within 24 hours with a case manager, a therapist, or a psychiatrist, and we do have slots available. So that's something that we're advertising. It's up on our website. We're working through some different ways to provide better access so people can get more immediate care. And then we're, as I mentioned, upgrading all of our withdrawal management facilities from 3.2 to 3.7, which means we have a more robust medical model. We just opened 16 new men's beds for residential substance abuse treatment in Building D, which is attached to the hospital. That's going to provide a tremendous amount of additional access to care. We run about a 20 person waiting list for men. And so that's going to help quite a bit with the community care situation. We're looking to hire more LPNs to support hospital operations. So if you know any LPNs, we're offering good money for LPNs. And then we're also looking at the opening of the new withdrawal center in Glenwood Springs, which will be 6 beds and also open at a 3.7 level of care. So there won't be a need to medical care anybody. About that, looking to hire therapists. So again, this is our new vision statement. We create healing breakthroughs in brain, body, and spiritual well-being for the individual, family, and community. Next slide. Pillar 1 is we want to be a model of excellence across the continuum of care. As I mentioned before, the idea that we meet the minimum for compliance is not quality in my view, right? Evidence-based care to children, prevention, linking that care into a continuum, making sure that we don't disengage patients in a fragmented system and lose them. These are all things that we have to work really hard on and have to use data to understand and to manage more effectively than we have in the past. That's going to take years, not months. I'm talking about being here 12 months with a place that was literally on fire, as all of you know, right? And the fires are out for the most part, but now it's the hard work of really putting a culture in place and rebuilding the organization so that number 1, it's trusted, and number 2, it's seen as a community resource whenever these things are discussed. Pillar 2, becoming a breakthrough community partner. Again, working with law enforcement, working with hospitals, working with the community partners, working with everybody that wants to work with us to improve the access and the quality of the care that's received by children, adults, and families in all of these counties that we serve on the western slope of Colorado. That's what we're committed to. We're committed to not just meeting minimum, we're committed to healing these communities when it comes to behavioral health. And then employer of choice. I'm pretty proud that our nursing pay and the pay for our techs and all of our other positions are as competitive as any hospital in Grand Junction. Aaron's my accountant, so I wouldn't say that's helping the bottom line, but it is certainly something that has helped the amount of talent that we've been able to recruit, and it's certainly, I think, solidified us as a really important employer here in the Grand Junction area. I talk a little bit about that fragmentation, right? So there's a lot that goes on. This is, I call this the spaghetti slide, but over on the left of this slide, this is really where all the patients come from. This is where, these are all the agencies that touch behavioral health patients in the field or in the course of their daily work. And what happens is we try to refer into a system that's incredibly fragmented. We use very little data. We don't track cohorts of patients. We don't really understand who hits where, when. There's some things we could do through QHN and some other data points that could help us track patients more effectively across the continuum. And there's certainly some more things that we could do related to our electronic health records and the way that we share information among hospitals and law enforcement agencies and everybody that really touches the same patient over and over again, right? To make sure that we're not disengaging that patient and their family. That care gets fragmented, we lose them, and we see them again, they're worse, right? So it's really creating a system of care where we can create a warm handoff, use data and electronic tools to make sure that people get from point A to point B. And if they disengage, we know right away, we go reach out and move them into the place that they need. Next slide. Again, just talking about integration, build a health continuum across the system of care. More efficient, the payment and episodes of bundled or payment care are becoming more popular. And it serves to differentiate providers by comparing access cost quality among competitors. So when people come and look at MindSprings, I want them to look at MindSprings and say, not only are they doing it right, they're doing it better, they're creating what's next, but they're also doing it at a very efficient cost point, right? They're also doing it in a way that that isn't breaking the bank and is leveraging all of the things that we know can deliver safe, effective care. So this is more what the system of care would look like in a future state, where you have these agencies actually aligned where they're seeing those patients. There's actually a system for clinical assessment and the electronic transfer of the information. So when the jail does an assessment on someone, it's available to my psychiatrist who may see that same patient when they're discharged, right? St. Mary's can see the last psych visit for a patient that hits the ER, right? And all that information is communicated. If a patient is discharged from the psych hospital and they hit another ER, there's an alert that can come through our QHN, HIE, to tell us, hey, that patient was discharged and then readmitted to a medical hospital right away. That helps us track the patient, get them back into care, re-engage them. So that's really important. We provide behavioral health overlays. So we're doing consults in the hospital. We're making sure that people, when they have a psychiatric diagnosis, are getting the care that they need the immediate moment that it's recognized that that's what's going on. Right? And then we have a coordination center, we have a call center, we have things that all triage that patient and get them ready for a behavioral health medical home. So they've got the ability to have all these services, depending on where their quality assessment lands them, that they can actually get to the right level of care at the right time, at the right payment point, so that they don't disengage and so that we can keep them engaged in care and actually start to improve them. Oh. So that's really the quick presentation on where MindSprings is and where MindSprings is going. And whenever I do these, there's so much history to the organization. I'm sure you guys have been up and down with MindSprings over the years. So I like to hear the pain. I like to hear the stories, and I like to hear the questions. So I'll shut up for a minute and let you guys ask me some questions.
All right. Thank you, John. Does anybody have any questions tonight for him?
Just super informative. I've never listened to a presentation about the hospital and all the services you provide. That's great. That's good to know that they exist in the community and that they're getting even better.
Yep.
It's really exciting to see that you have a same day appointment, because I know that that's been a huge concern. It's also impressive that you're able to do that. How often are you seeing, like, you have 8 beds you said at the hospital? How many people are you having? That's good, but how many people are you having to also turn away in that?
So we have 48 beds total, plus the 8 psych-ER beds at the hospital.
Okay.
So right now we're staffed and operating at about 32. So we're fluctuating between 28 and 32 patients. I want to see us get to 43, which is 90% occupancy by October, November. So it's gradually, we're opening the hospital up. The psych-ER is there and it's not full. So it's not full on a regular basis. So a lot of the conversations that I'm having I mean, recently I've been down to see the CEO at Montrose, the CEO at Delta. I work really closely with Brian Johnson, really closely with Community Hospital. Just talking about the fact that we can do ER to ER transfers, right? Patient doesn't have to sit just because I don't have an inpatient bed. They can be transferred to our psych ER and we can manage the patient there and get them out quicker. The other piece that's starting to catch on is law enforcement can just pull up and drop off. That's not muscle memory for them yet, but I think we can start to work on that with all the local law enforcement agencies so that patients don't have, there's been a lot of talk about, co-responding and community crisis work, and that's all great. But about 70% of those people need to go somewhere,
Right.
right? So you can be out in the field assessing someone, determine they need to go somewhere, they still need somewhere to go. And so this is the place where we hope people will start.
What is the correct kind of, do you have a criteria for that ER? Like, do you have a criteria?
So it's EMTALA. So basically the criteria is that if someone's having a mental health emergency, or even if it's a substance abuse, right? And you just can't tell, because sometimes you can't tell. And and sometimes it's a lot of mental health and a little substance abuse, or a lot of substance abuse and a little mental health, right? It depends on the patient. So really what we want you to do is just bring them there. We'll assess what's going on. And then we won't discharge them without a warm handoff. And then we will also make sure that if they have the need for detox, for instance, that now we can walk them down the hall to the detox versus before, where in a 3.2 program, we get certain patients in that needed detox in the psych ER. We have to send them out to St. Mary's to be medically cleared, or we could bring them back to the same campus to put them in the detox, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to do that anymore. So that's
That's
huge
great.
game changer.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about criteria for not a non-emergency bed?
For a non-emergency bed, anyone can come and be, we've got to evaluate you if you come to the psych ER. If it's a voluntary admission, we take voluntary admissions as well. It's not the norm, but we can certainly accommodate a voluntary admission. You just feel like you want to come in and be checked in for a few days.
And you're not having to turn away a lot of people who come in that regard. A family family members taught a person into coming, and you evaluated, and you're probably going to be able to take them.
We're probably going to be able to take them. We're certainly not going to let them leave until they've been evaluated for either admission to our facility or admission to another facility.
That's awesome.
I'm really focused on trying to reduce the amount of folks that are going to the front range for care, particularly children.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I just want to make sure I understood something, because I know it wasn't that long ago, if a person in high school was having some issues, it could be up to 20 days before they could see somebody. So you're now telling that's now down to same day?
And if they're in crisis, they need to come to
Thank
the
you.
psych unit.
Thank you.
That's really amazing. And he said that there's child psychologists
No.
are available, not
Psychiatrist, yeah.
psychiatrists, sorry, not
Therapist, yeah.
big deal.
That's a big change. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Very welcome.
So what is Mind Springs doing to help Fruita specifically?
I think that's a question, right? I don't know that we've been very targeted on Fruita specifically. And I think there's obviously a great need here, just like there is everywhere else. That would be a question that I would have, is what can we do better in this community than we have in the past?
I wonder how much partnership with Family Health West, they have a big presence in our community with various business aspects with the hospital and other long-term care. And they're very much engaged in our community. And I could see it valuable that you reach out to them and see what you can do. Like if it's availability in their facility for in-person care, so that we don't have to go to Junction for various cares, but can take care of needs here. Or things like that nature. I don't know. I think, is it Dr. Klein who's the CEO?
Yeah, Corey and I have had probably 3 meetings in the last month. On
Awesome.
that very subject. So that's timely. I'm glad you said it, because they're doing some great work there.
Yeah.
They're doing some behavioral health stuff there. We are talking with them very closely, but I think we'd be open to, opening an office, so it's something that I'll bring back and make sure that we're paying attention. We're just getting to the tough compliance year.
Sure. And I would even suggest too, just a booth, like informational booth, again, the same day appointment thing is a huge deal. So at a farmer's market or Fruita Fall Fest or something like that, where
Sense.
you have a booth of just sharing
Makes sense.
information would be,
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
We will definitely be.
I think within the community, consistent messaging. I mean, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, and I think that's a little bit of an uphill battle. It's just consistently being here, great ideas, and just making sure the community knows you're here.
And I think that's, you know, I spend a lot of time on my cell phone just working through. You know, I was telling you, I went down to, you know, Delta and Montrose and talked to the staff there, and they start sending patients, and we start screwing it up. And so, and I start getting on the phone and, you know, deconflicting things, and that's how you learn, right? So our front door has been broken for a really long time. A lot of it is getting fixed and getting fixed rapidly. What I would ask is that if you run into a roadblock, I'm going to leave you guys some cards. Please give me the feedback and give me the specifics. And if you can put me in touch with whoever's having trouble, it helps me. It really helps me figure out, to your point, what's getting better and what's not. Because as Aaron knows, they seem to be telling me the truth.
Any other questions for John? Well, thank you, John. Yeah, if you want to come up and pass your business cards.
Thank you so much. Really good news. Thank you.
All right, thanks, John.
And John, you might want to, Kayla, right behind you is the director of the chamber, Fruita Chamber.
All right, we're going to move into our next presentation. So we've got the executive director of the Fruita Area Chamber of Commerce, Kayla Bowers here, that's going to be giving us an update.
Oh, I wrote everything down so I could keep it under 10 minutes for you guys. So ladies and gentlemen and members of Fruita City Council, thank you for being here tonight. As the executive director of the Fruita Area Chamber of Commerce, I understand the importance of collaborative community efforts and the role that our local chamber plays in the well-being of Fruita and the surrounding areas. The Fruita Area Chamber is not just an organization. It's a catalyst for growth, a hub for community engagement, and guardian of our city's economic vitality. Over the last year, the Chamber has been focusing our efforts on ways to better support local businesses and continuing to be a trusted community resource. We have collaborated with other organizations like the Business Incubator Center to provide educational opportunities such as Coffee Club, hosted here at the F-Works co-working space. In addition to that, we also host workshops, which provide guidance and access to programs that businesses can, lost my spot, programs and development services that help businesses thrive. The Chamber has also helped support community engagement as we are deeply involved in our local community. With the Chamber hosting events like the Fruita Fall Festival and Fruita Farmers Market, we are the facilitators of partnerships between business and local organizations, which enhances the quality of life in the city and creates a sense of pride and belonging among residents. The Chamber also has funded scholarships for youth in our community. This year, we were able to pass the scholarship fund to the Fruita Area Chamber Foundation, which was able to increase to $1,000 each for students this year. We honored a local FFA student, a business major student, and a student services, all of which graduated from Fruita Monument High School and will be continuing to pursue higher education here at Colorado Mesa University. We also continue to foster Kids in Business, which is an opportunity for young entrepreneurs in our community to learn the fundamentals of running a business. We currently have 29 kids in businesses who have participated in the Fruita Farmers Market this year. The Chamber also has strong partnerships with Fruita boards and commissions. Last year, the Chamber helped recruit sponsorship dollars to help support the Fruita History Coloring and Activity Book. Thanks to the collaborative efforts of the Chamber, the Historic Preservation Board, and our local businesses, we were able to print 5,000 copies to be distributed to local businesses and in our schools. Another important role that the Chamber plays is advocacy and representation. Our Government Affairs Committee is made up by our member businesses for our member businesses. And this committee advocates in the interest of businesses at the local, regional, and sometimes even the national level. 617 bills were passed in the Colorado General Assembly this year, and more than 78% of those bills were actually passed. These bills not only affect our local businesses, but our communities. Our Government Affairs Committee monitored 42 of those bills and took position on 32. This committee is nonpartisan and serves as the voice of business in advocating for policies and programs which create an environment in which businesses can thrive and expand. Next month, the Colorado Economic Development Council is hosting its annual conference here in Mesa County, and the Fruita Chamber is hosting a tour here in Fruita that will showcase some of our downtown revitalization projects, outdoor recreation, and our community culture, all of which promotes the city of Fruita on a statewide level. As your local chamber, we often engage in marketing and branding efforts that promote the city as a great place to live, work, and do business. These efforts enhance the city's reputation and attract new residents and businesses due to the community culture the chamber helps cultivate. My commitment to the city council is My commitment to the city council is to provide more data that will help support the important work that the chamber is doing and the direct impact it has on the city of Fruita. We are currently developing our strategic plan in the upcoming months, and part of those efforts will be to create a vision and traction organizer to help the chamber stay on track to achieving our core focus, our 1-year plan, 3-year picture, and 10-year target. These are all strategies that we've learned from the EOS model, which was a workshop we hosted earlier this year at Coffee Club. I would like to also include data surrounding tourism support the chamber provides as a downtown visitor center and a resource for visitors and community members, as well as analytics for the economic impact these events like Fruita Fall Festival have on the city of Fruita. I hope you all had an opportunity to look over the annual report we did for 2022. Thanks to the continued partnership of the city of Fruita and the Fruita Chamber, we were able to accomplish some major milestones over the past year. While we are a nonprofit organization, we must still operate as a business. So we have launched innovative partnerships to help stretch our dollars further in the community, like our partnership we have with the Palisade Chamber of Commerce. I also wanted to send you over a copy of our 2022 balance sheet and profit and loss statements, so you have a better understanding of the small budget we must work with and the big accomplishments we've achieved under that budget. Inflation has significantly impacted our local businesses, and the chamber is not exempt from that. In 2022, our event expenses increased 36.5%, while our income only increased by about 19%, which resulted in a financial loss for 2022. Our membership dues also decreased from 2021 to 2022 by 11%, due in part to the financial setbacks that our local businesses have been facing since the pandemic. You should have also received a copy of our 2023 financial statement year to date. We're committed to increasing our revenue and looking at creative ways to do that without putting that burden back on our local businesses. We're fortunate to have several community partners like the city of Fruita, who also invest in the chamber to help keep our resources and educational opportunities low or no cost to our local businesses. We also seek sponsor dollars to help fund small scholarships for students to attend educational events like the Women's Conference that we hosted earlier this year at Colorado Mesa University. The large community events the chamber hosts provide a great deal of value and sense of belonging to our Fruita community. Without the chamber here to host those events, that responsibility could fall on the city of Fruita. Hiring an event planner alone to coordinate events like the Farmers Market, Fall Festival, Parade of Lights could cost somewhere on the low end of $65,000 for a full-time position and paid benefits. And the chamber continues to host these events in addition to everything else that we do for half of that cost. Partnerships between chambers and their local municipalities aren't uncommon. By continuing to foster strong partnerships with the city of Fruita and the Fruita Area Chamber, it directly supports the culture we have worked so hard to create here in Fruita. Not everything we do is profitable, but we continue to support the families and the children in our community and build that family-friendly culture that Fruita's worked so hard to achieve. The chamber exists to grow a prosperous and sustainable community with the vision of being a trusted advocate and resource to our community. As part of my closing remarks, I would like to ask you, City Council, to consider the continued partnership investment of $30,000 for 2024. The partnership between the city of Fruita and the Fruita Area Chamber of Commerce isn't just an alliance. It's an investment in our shared future. And the return on investment with the chamber is felt in the growth of our local businesses, the strength in our economy, the sense of belonging in our community, and the overall well-being of our residents. And we're honored to be a part of that. Thank you.
Don't go away yet.
I know,
I may
I'm
have
not.
questions. Anybody have any questions? to start with? No? Thought Matthew would, but- No, I appreciate you getting us.
He's on the board.
Oh,
He-
yeah. Well, At the last presentation, Aaron works with them and he didn't have a problem. So, no, I appreciate all this information, Kayla. I know you guys work really hard and trying to promote what's going on here and I hear a lot of positive stuff on the momentum on where you guys are going. So,
Thank you.
I do actually have one question.
Yes.
You may or may not know, out of the Fruita businesses and all of them, do you have an idea percentage wise, how many are chamber members?
Out of Fruita businesses, that's a great question. I do not have that statistic, but I will pull that data and I can send that over to you.
Awesome.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
all right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Kayla.
Thank you so much.
Taylor.
Thank you.
And keeping it within 10 minutes. We like that. All right, with that, we're going to move into our public participation. So this section is set aside for the city council to listen to comments by the public regarding items that do not otherwise appear on the agenda. Generally, the city council will not take any action or discuss these issues. So is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? All right, hearing none, we're going to close public participation and move into our consent agenda. So these are items where all conditions or requirements have been agreed to or met prior to the time they come before council for final action. They'll all be approved by a single motion of the city council. So with that, we're going to open up the consent agenda. So if there's anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on an item that's on the consent agenda, now is your opportunity. All right, hearing none, we'll close the consent agenda and bring it back to council. Does anybody have any questions on any of the items on there, or do we have a motion?
Move to approve the.
All right, we got a first and a second. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, and then the other item after this that we added to the agenda was just the acknowledgement of, we've had 5 people that we appointed to boards and commissions this month. So I know some of them were filling terms that were expired and that, and so it's great to see people in our community applying to those positions. And it kind of ties in with our boards and commissions get together that we just had. What was that, a week and a half ago? And just how appreciative I think we are up here, sitting up here, getting that feedback. So we just wanted to thank those that applied and wish them well as they give us more insight. So with that, we're going to move into our public hearings. And so we've got 2 quasi judicial hearings. Both of them are liquor permits. And so we've got our Deputy City Clerk, Deb Woods, here to present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. It's good to be with you tonight. First special event liquor permit application was submitted by the Fruita Area Chamber of Commerce. And this is for the Brew Fest Friday night of Fruita Fall Festival, which will be held on Friday, September 22nd from 5 to 10 p.m. Excuse me. So the Fruita Chamber has submitted their request to sell and serve beer and cider at the 2023 Brew Fest. They have submitted the fee and all the necessary paperwork for a special event liquor permit. The diagram of the proposed licensed premises consists of a fenced-in area at Civic Center Memorial Park, and security will be provided by the chamber, as well as having chamber staff and volunteers. Excuse me. Fruita Chief of Police Dave Kraus reviewed the application and issued his statement that there is nothing that would prohibit the issuance of the license being requested. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation to the City Council that the application for the special event liquor permit be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, the alcohol will discontinue being served at 9:30, allowing patrons 30 minutes to finish their beverages and leave the licensed area. Number 2, the licensee needs to be aware that they're solely responsible for control of the licensed premises in regard to alcohol possession, consumption, and adherence to state and municipal laws. And 3, all other procedures presented by the Fruita Area Chamber of Commerce will be followed. Executive Director of the Fruita Chamber, Kayla Bowers, is here present this evening as the applicant's representative, so I'll turn it over to Kayla for any comments she may like.
Thank you, Deb. As always, you did a wonderful job. I did just want to add that we have hired security to help monitor the beer garden as we do every year. And this year, we've actually asked security to specifically monitor each of the entry and exit points so that that burden does not fall on volunteers. We have had incidents where individuals have tried to take their beer out and volunteers didn't really feel as comfortable when there was an issue that arose. So we made sure this year that we have security that will be stationed at all of those entry and exit points. Anybody who does get a wristband will be the only ones that are able to be served from the breweries on Friday night, who will be pouring all of the alcohol. So that way they know who has been properly ID'd.
All right, thanks, Kayla. With that, we're going to open up to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that has anything they'd like to add to this item, now is your opportunity. All right, hearing none, we're going to close public comment and bring it back to council. Does anybody have any questions for Kayla or Deb related to this? We have a motion.
I move to approve the application for a special event liquor permit for the Fruita Area Chamber of Commerce to sell and serve beer and or cider at the Fruita Fall Festival Beer Fest to be held on Friday, September 22nd, 2023, or 23 from 5 to 10 p.m. at the Civic Center Memorial Park, subject to the conditions stated by staff.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Counselor Hansi, Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thanks, Kayla. All right, with that, we're going to move into our second hearing. It's for another special event liquor permit application. And we've got our Deputy City Clerk, Deb Woods, presenting.
Mr. Mayor, this application was submitted by the Fruita Rotary Club. And I just grabbed the wrong piece of paper.
I say Luke could probably present on this one too.
So the Fruita Rotary Club has submitted the fee and all the necessary paperwork for a special event liquor permit to provide beer service at this year's Fruita Fall Festival on Saturday, September 23rd from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. The diagram included in your council packet illustrates the proposed licensed premises consisting of a fenced-in area at Civic Center Memorial Park. In their narrative, the Rotary Club states that Rotarians will monitor the licensed area, including the entrance and exits, to ensure that no alcohol enters or leaves the area. Patrons will be ID'd, issued a wristband, and monitored for signs of becoming overly intoxicated and to make sure the alcohol does not leave or enter the licensed area. Fruita Chief of Police Dave Kraus reviewed the Rotary's application and issued a statement that there is nothing that would prohibit the issuance of the license being requested. It is staff's recommendation to the City Council that the application for the special event liquor permit be approved, subject to the following conditions. Applicant will discontinue serving alcohol at 9 p.m. to allow patrons 30 minutes to finish their beverages and leave the licensed area. The licensee needs to be aware that they're solely responsible for control of the licensed premises in regard to alcohol possession, consumption, and adherence to state and municipal laws. And all other procedures presented by the Fruita Rotary Club will be followed. Rotarian Lou Mudd is present this evening as the applicant's representative, so I will ask Lou to come on up and.
I've appeared here a few times. Probably longer than any of you have been here. So all the money we earn from the Rotary Club goes, probably 80% of it goes back to our community. We're looking at some international projects this year in Guatemala and some different places, because Rotary is an international organization. But we appreciate all the approvals of all of our previous beer applications. The other clubs in the valley are envious when a 15-member club like ours in May, we had 13 of our 15 members attend a alcohol service training over in Grand Junction. So that we essentially know and are trained and experienced at alcohol serving. Just helps keep things a little more secure, and we know what to watch for, what our liability is relative to serving of alcohol, and we're want to protect that as we go forward. So consideration of this is, we really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you at Fall Fest.
All right, thanks, Lou. All right, with that, we're going to open it up to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on this item, now is your opportunity. All right, hearing none, we're going to close public comment and bring it back to council. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this item?
I do, and I think I had this question last time too, and I may continue to have this question. 10 a.m. seems early to me. Is there a specific reason that is? It's at the same time as the parade, for instance?
We put 10 a.m. just because as we're setting everything up, and we'll get some people walking around and coming in. Even if our booth is not set up and we're making sure all the taps are pouring properly, we're there in time, and we usually don't get much business of any kind till after the parade. But once the parade is over, people start pouring into the park. So we put 10 a.m. down just as a buffer for those people who might be showing up early and not have to turn anybody away.
10 a.m. includes like setup time and things like that, not the time of starting to serve alcohol.
Probably not. I mean, there aren't going to be, there's sometimes a few people that come in and say, hey, it's hot out and can I get a beer? I know it's before lunch, but it's not a line at that point. It's a few people.
It's neither here nor there. I mean,
Yeah.
it always just rings funny to me when I see it. So I just wanted to ask if there was a specific reason. Thank you.
I came from a town before living here that the bars opened at 8 a.m. because it was right across from the railroad, and the railroaders would be getting off their shift.
Yep.
And yeah, it seemed odd to me that, they're busy at 8 a.m., but
Yeah.
the same kind of thing. There's people coming after the parade, or they've been up, they were doing some things. Maybe they went on a morning run or whatever's going on during Fall Fest. And so, yeah, it's not a big deal. I bet if we serve 6 or 7 people before 10 or before 10:30 by 11, but lunchtime crowd, we just want to make sure we have everybody there and in place when the events all start ending and people start pouring into the park.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I move we approve the application for a special event liquor permit for the Fruita Rotary Club to sell and serve beer at the 2023 Fruita Fall Festival to be held on Saturday, September 23rd, 2023 from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. at Civic Center Memorial Park, subject to the conditions stated by staff.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Are there any other questions or comments?
In the honor of the late, great Jimmy Buffett, just remember it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
All right, with that, Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Lou, for being here. All right, with that, we're going to move into, we do not have anything on our administrative agenda, so we're going to move into our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I have 4 items tonight with the help of Ciara and Mary Elizabeth. But the first item is I wanted to give you an update on something that for years there's been the question of what's happening with the vacant lot, 2 lots north of Hot Tomatoes. There's a large lot there. It's often been requested of the city, even though we don't own it. Can people at least park there? It's privately owned, and we've had a number of discussions. We've never been able to agree to, the asking price has been either 2 million or 3 million over the years for that lot. And so it's never been something we would justify purchasing at that price based on average land value. But we've had some conversations with them we broached the subject about what if we leased it for overflow parking. And we've been able to agree, we were not in any kind of contract, but we've been able to agree on a price that they would offer to the city. And I just want to give you a heads up on that. The reason why I'm bringing it up now, it's as an update, is if we were to do a contract, we'd put that through the budget process for next year. However, because it's available, and I could do a month to month, which they've agreed to for the remainder of the year when it's going to get much busier within the next few weeks. And so I wanted to bring it up and kind of see how you all felt. But it would be 9,000 a year, so about 750 or 750 a month, 9,000 a year for leasing that property and being able to open it up. To fight, sometimes doing a good thing can be a tough thing later because let's say we start leasing that property and it's great to add overflow parking, but at some point in the future, someone could purchase it and potentially, and then there's no parking. Maybe it's a building or something like that. Our lease agreement would have that we would have at least a first right of refusal in it if anybody made an offer. So that's one thing that we were able, that they were willing to agree to. Also, if we were to, they would on an annual amount, it would be a payment for the year. But if there was any sale that we refused, we would receive prorated back, just for, say we paid for the full year and 3 months into the year, someone purchased it, we refused it, then we would get the 9 months back. We would, one thing that would be interesting with this, there'd be no improvements put into it. They're not willing to have improvements when it's kind of for sale, which is understandable because someone might not want all that surface area of paved, and which is quite expensive both ways. There's also building code things that kick in if it goes beyond just an overflow lot that we would have to abide by, that would not be part of what they're willing to agree to, if that makes sense. So essentially we would have a sign to kind of gauge the fact that this is temporary overflow public parking. And there would, no lines or anything. It'd be very similar to what we've had before at Little Saltwash Park and on some extra property that we had. We've made more improvements because it is our land at that point, and we have future plans. But so that's something that really all I was bringing up is something we'd bring up for more of a contract for the future with the city council. But if that's something everybody's already interested in, I could go ahead and get a month to month going for this year. I just would hate to do that if it's something that you're definitely not interested in, because we have the funds available to do the remainder of the year. I'm not going to a longer contract than I can go into myself. So
When do you think we could start that, Mike? If we did?
It'd be pretty quick. I
In
mean,
time
it's
for Fall
available at this
Festival?
point in time. So yes, we would want to have it. That's what that's what we're shooting for, is before Fall Festival is kind of that. I appreciate you saying that, but that was the reasoning for throwing it on the update tonight.
I like the fact that it gives us the first right of refusal on that property. What kind of changes the dynamic of us just sitting back and watching that thing and just.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if they are going to sell it, and I don't see anybody stepping up to pay that kind of money for it, but if they do finally get tired of it and they want to sell it, that gives us a really good option to get our.
It does.
I like it all the way across the board. Thank you for working on it.
Mm-hmm. It came up through, as you know, we've engaged Lori Chesnick as our realtor. She had started leasing it, brought it up, and we started having those conversations. Our planning department staff, Matt Carson, has been working with the owners on that.
A lot of pressure valve off a lot of the businesses down, especially for like Copper Club and Base Camp and Hot Tomato. It's phenomenal to have that access.
Yeah.
Would there be some reserved spots for that? I think they're an apartment building there, or is it just a house? I don't know. There's some people that park in there right now, right?
I think it's just Lori Chesnick right now.
Right now, it's only allowed for Lori Chesnick and her.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I used to see 4 or 5 cars there, but. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike, are they gonna allow us to put up any type of signage? Like parking
So,
provided by the.
yeah, we would put up some signage that would have our logo and just say temporary overflow public parking, something to as best we can manage expectations. Again, we would not want to make it seem as if this is permanent, because it's not.
Is it something that we would block off during when it doesn't need to be used to, like during the week? It's blocked off and just open on the weekends or when there's festivals, or like, are we saying 24/7?
It would be open, but the one thing I left out is we would have something that would disregard or not allow overnight parking, but yeah, it would be open just like all of our other parking lots currently.
I think, and obviously you've alluded to it, but just to reiterate, I think that right off the bat, having the signage, like
before we open it, we would have
before, as it opens, so that there's no question that it's very obvious what we're doing.
Right. So the length and time would be more getting some things signed and making the sign more, otherwise it's ready to go. I mean,
Sounds great to me, like,
I've-
but I did want a quick question, just like, no lines, you said, fine, so, but how will people know, oh, which direction to park, for instance, how many rows are there? That kind of, thing. Do you foresee?
yeah, typically with overflow parking lots like this, it's
I mean, I've.
it is a little bit that way, which typically doesn't get into many issues. It just might not be the most efficient way to park. Like if lines help you get as many as you can in there within what's allowed. But in this respect, they might be spaced out a little more and things
Every
like
once
that.
in a
But
while,
being
3 rows-
overflow,
3 rows wind up happening, and then the middle people are stuck. That
Right.
happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Are we able to do ground paint, like just spray ground paint like we?
that's one thing that Matt's looking into. It kind of depends on what the owners allow as well. So
anyways, all together.
sorry, Matt, it's something they already looked in, and Dan's telling me won't work. So for whatever
Is there
reason.
any consideration to limit the parking to standard vehicles with no trailers or something like that to keep big old vehicles out of that, since it's
Compact cars only.
Yeah.
Pickup trucks.
Right. Yeah, one of the things we can do is one of the limiting factors we might be able to do is, if you've seen in some of those with like the stakes with like the ropes to kind of help you see some rows. And then we're looking at whatever language we can put that helps with avoiding. Our one concern would be like just how we have to look at any of our parking lots, but not having campers, in the.
So Mike, the other question would be, since they're not gonna maintain this, what is our long-term cost, we think? Because we're gonna have to grade it, we're gonna have to do some other things, I'm sure, throughout the year when you're talking about.
Well, those are the improvements that it's lot as is, because if we start doing those types of things, you can't go from where it is to a full, then you're paving, and it's a big difference.
Well, I guess my concern is that all of a sudden, like this week, we got a whole bunch of rain. All of a sudden you have a whole bunch of people parking in this, and all of a sudden you start getting waves and dips. Is that something that would be addressed, or is it like,
Rocks in there.
yeah?
It would take a
Yeah.
lot, I think.
But you're saying take a lot, but it hasn't been open for public parking. So now when you start thinking every week, you're probably gonna have people using that, thinking
Yeah.
about when they playing music at Hot Tomato, all of a sudden you get more people in there. So I think,
We're not concerned with
okay, you're not, all right.
long run on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. All right, well, I think you've got. is
Honestly,
everybody-
our biggest concern would be, the things we already talked about.
Right.
So
Okay, I think,
just an idea with pointing people for large vehicles back to, because this lot here outside this building is the designated big.
yeah, I actually would. James caught me outside when I was passing by last week, and one thing we're looking at is just simply adding the word. It might, whether we can add it to the existing sign or create a new sign that's identical, but when you're coming down, when you're going east on Aspen and you look to the right, there's a sign that points you and it says large vehicles, and it come up. There's been some confusion sometimes, but suggestion, which I thought was excellent, was adding large lot with that arrow. And then because then you get to this lot where it talks about some of that. So
And then
for larger
trash,
vehicles.
Are we gonna put trash cans out there or something to?
No,
Not
we weren't, no.
I think someone
I guess
did
it's just trying
mention
to
it.
keep it clean, like,
Are you talking about in ours or in?
Temporary.
I mean, in the temporary, is it something to consider?
Yeah.
Tr-
I mean, we don't have them in any of our public parking lots, so.
Oh, then
Except for the building here, but
I'm just trying to like, how can?
like we own the one by Kim's, we own the one across from Hot Tomato.
Nothing in those. so
Right, we don't-
see what's
yeah.
involved.
Yeah,
I think someone mentioned it, but I did want to just kind of bring it up since we get to go at this fresh. When we do the signage for that says no overnight, can we make sure that we do put no campers, no trailers on that sign as well? Is that something we could put on?
yeah, I just have to
initial
check on,
signage?
there's always some nuances of how we can handle, so. Yeah.
Sure, 6.5. So Matt wouldn't be able to read it, but
Here it is.
if we can, that would.
All five are good with this except for Amy.
I think
I actually talked to her, she's great with it.
All right, just checking.
I'm here to defend us.
I know. All right, well, that's
Thank
fun.
you guys for doing that. That's a great.
That was only 10 minutes, Mike. Let's hope your next two
Yeah.
are a little shorter.
So we have, the other one was, we sent out an email, which was forwarded from Mesa County Public Health about suicide awareness campaign. Just wanted to see if you had any questions or direction. Ciara is planning on resharing a lot of those campaigns, but there are some opportunities for some of you to participate in that as a council member, as a mayor. And you know, there were templates that we emailed out. I just wanted to see if you had any questions. If you don't, and you want to look at it again and just let us know if you're willing to do it. But the main thing was kind of seeing if the group felt any discomfort in anybody participating in that campaign or not. So,
Everybody's good?
everybody's good.
okay, great. And then
To email you or tell you now if we want to.
either way, whichever works best for you. So,
I'm on board.
all right.
I would help.
Okay, I will say, I know Sarah Spalding with the City of Grand Junction's working with KKCO on some news stories, and one was with the mayor.
Oh, did you say KKCO? Never mind.
Yeah.
No,
So if that's something you're interested in, I can work with her to facilitate that.
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, great.
Great. That's number 2, right?
That was number 2. And the last updates, I was going to have Mary Elizabeth cover, and one is just a follow-up to the email she sent you related to liability and Friends of Enoch Lake. And then the second is just to give you a brief update on the transaction of us purchasing the property from Mesa County at the beach.
It's hilarious. So as far as the county transaction, you remember that you authorized Mike to sign the contract to be able to move forward with that closing. Mesa County has a unwritten policy that they only convey title to property via quitclaim deed. And initially that gave me a lot of heartache because it was uncertain whether or not we were going to get title insurance. We have gone over that hump. Title insurance will be available and we will be covered. You know, the city has been a beneficial owner of that property, even though they haven't held title. There isn't anything in the title work. You know, we did get that obviously. And the county is signing an affidavit that, you know, basically they haven't done anything that would cause there to be any issues, which is acceptable by the underwriters. So we are getting title insurance, but just in case, you know, when you see that come through or if somebody has a question about it, it is a quitclaim deed, but we do get title insurance. So just wanted you to be aware of the nuance. Then as far as Friends of Enoch Lake, they have, you know, they did send a request to you guys to start doing work up there and possibly get some keys and other access from Public Works to be able to do some work. Just like the city would have any contractor out helping the city, you have to have them under contract and they have to be fully insured. So, you know, on September 19th, when you guys are talking through process and next step for Enix Lake, that's something to keep in mind. But the short answer is staff will be responding to them that, they, until or unless the city enters into a contract, they're not going to be doing any work on behalf of the city.
Right, and Mary Elizabeth, and also, I guess I want to be clear, on the 19th, we're talking about process for all
Right.
sides. It's not just Enix. It's
Oh,
not just Enix Lake. And so that was one of the things they requested in that email too, was
To be put on the agenda. And that's not to, that's not how we handle requests like that. That's not how the city, is not putting that on as a specific agenda item for dialogue that night at all. So the 19th is going to be talking about process in general for selling property in Enix Lake. Anything else? Did I forget something, Mike?
And just, so I was going to send a response to that, so you don't have to, and I can send that response to all of you, just so they're not wondering. And I'll let them know that the 19th is a discussion you all have. It's not a public hearing. It's a discussion to talk about process. And that we were, this concern was something Mary Elizabeth and I discussed on Thursday, long before we ever received an email from them that they may have an impression after that meeting that they can just start doing things. And that, like Mary Elizabeth said, we can't just have groups doing that. We have to be under contract and different things like that. So.
We do have a question on the 19th.
yes.
There's a process. On the 19th is the expectation that as council, we'll start kind of a brainstorming from scratch, or is it possible for us to have some sort of documents like, here's some ways to think about it, so we can come into that meeting? Yes, so we're not, I don't want to start cold on that meeting.
Well, if the majority of council tonight wants to give staff direction to do that. then-
Well, that's why I'm talking to you.
That's what I'm saying.
Consensus around council.
So,
I mean,
Yeah.
if you guys
Okay.
give staff some direction of any prep work you would like for staff to undertake.
Yes.
so what kind of direction are you thinking? I mean,
I'm sure we're not the first community to consider this. So I would, samples of how some other communities have handled this, just so we can get a framework to get started.
so in my,
Also, we could talk about how, if like we had a parcel that we wanted to sell, how would we like to do that?
Yeah, often we can find samples. This one could be odd to find some samples on. I mean, we could, but I'd rather spend a little more, if okay, I'd rather spend more time on just it. From what we've heard, it sounds like you're interested in selling and you're interested in going through a process where we're essentially putting it for sale for some period of time. And then, but we still have to meet our ordinance process. So I think we could easily bring some examples of what that would look like.
I think what council was asking, or what I was hearing, because I got to sit back there where Shannon is that it's about the perceived transparency of it, I think is what I heard from that conversation. So I think that is how we're want to address that.
Yeah, which I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to make sure we just, because we all have a habit of saying, putting it up for sale. It's not it. We just need to be very careful that we say it's any property.
Well,
I think that's a distinction though.
at this point in time, it doesn't matter, Council Bremen. It was before the hearing that was pending, so.
But if we
can talk
had,
about that.
but the thing is that's part of the conversation too, probably on that night, is if you have specific like we may purchase properties, like we look at the lagoon property or the beach, however you want to call that we have other partners in it. Those, we may want to set policies to treat those differently because we already are in partnerships. We may want to treat separate parcels that are in the city limits different than we treat parcels that aren't in the city limits. So all those little nuances.
Well-
You're not speaking the microphone.
I think what I would suggest is, so the charter says to sell property, you have to go through the ordinance process. That's all the charter says. It doesn't say anything about putting a for sale sign out. It doesn't say anything about offering it for a certain amount of time. And, and I realize that that's something that you guys had some concern about in the way for this particular piece of property, how, you know, how we got to the hearing in the ordinance. So I guess I would just suggest from a process standpoint, the 19th, I feel like you guys have one particular piece of property, the Enix Lake land and water, that's kind of at the forefront, right? Of how do we deal with this particular piece of property? To the mayor's point, you know, you've got lots of other properties that are in different situations, you know, and I think the Enix Lake parcel is unique for a variety of reasons. So, you know, it's a mountain property surrounded by private property, you know, has water, other parcels don't have water, all these things. So I guess I would suggest, and you guys can, if you don't think this is a good idea, that's totally fine, but I would, on the 19th, really think about the process for Enix. Because tackling the process for, you know, every single type of property the city has is going to be kind of difficult to do, I think, from a staff perspective to even think about all of that. And could get the ball rolling on Enix. And then, you know, at a later time when there's a little pressure off, you know, talk about if you want to set a specific policy to address other sales. I don't know, like if I spoke out of turn about that, but.
That's what I was thinking about is the 19th to be more specific to Enix Lake, because we per se, apologize if it's not the better terminology, but like we have a minimum standard with the current charter. And I think the consensus that we had is just, we wanted to change it due to transparency of standard for all property, yet what do we want to do specifically for Enix? I could be valuable to talk about.
On that one, I'm fine with kind of clumping it with, let's say, mountain properties or properties outside of the city
Not too
limit.
specific.
It just feels awkward to me to say we're just going to set a policy for this one and then leave everything open. If we're looking to set in precedent or policy, I think it has to apply to very passionate, all those kind of mountain properties.
That sounds good to
look
me.
at it.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And maybe the conversation, my question is for the conversation then, but is that night, is there a possibility that we can give direction to put the land up for sale?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So one,
Even though it's a workshop and we aren't
Right.
actually
No worries.
it's a council meeting. It's 2 weeks from tonight.
last.
So I had one question. I posed it to Mike because the sale of any of our property, somebody can come to us and offer us money and we go through the process that we do it with. And we're hearing, oh, it's not transparent. But I say on the opposite side of it, we're purchasing property from the powder coating place. They never put it up for sale or anything else. So, you know,
I think
both the side.
Buyers, there's different rules for buyers and sellers.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying it's back to that transparency thing.
Except for the fact, if we're buying and if we do too much transparency, it puts the city in an adverse position.
Well, I know, I understand that, but I'm just saying those are things we get as questions.
I appreciate what you said, Councilor Bremen, that we take it as a mountain property. And then I'm stressing that we can have another workshop later to discuss like, what is our current policy? What are some other policies that we could have to encourage or set the ability to have more transparency that is we'd prefer to have. We have the standard, but how much?
It seems to me like it was set the way that it was to make things happen in a certain fluidity and also be legal. Mayor Elizabeth was correct in the fact that when she brought up this particular one as a very unique situation. How often are we approached by a general public person to buy some of our property?
Not
Doesn't happen very often.
very often.
So that's why I feel like maybe diving in and just changing the whole thing when really it covers us, but at the same time, The mountain properties are a unique situation. So it does make sense to address that particular thing individually. But I don't know that we really need to go in and dig up everything and change the whole scenario.
Quick conversation doesn't.
Yeah,
I
so I
just-
think we really should focus on what's in front of us. And
Yeah.
then, like you say, if we do want to get into it later, that would make sense. But it seems like it's kind of there to make that bridge. And this was just a unique situation.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify a couple things. I maybe we're getting a little nervous when you're saying create a policy or more transparency, because there's nothing more transparent than public notices and public hearings. Like, and what I'm saying is you can't change that process. That's a charter process, right? So it's an ordinance process. You can create steps ahead of it, but you're still going to go through that
Yeah.
process.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
I think even with this, with all the mountain properties, I mean, you can post, let's just say, for example, it could be as simple as we list it with our realtor lists it, and we pick a period of time. We're going to take offers and for 30 days, for 60 days, whatever. And then we're going to review those offers. We're going to go through the U process, and we're going to go through our ordinance process on whichever, offer we want. We could even simultaneously get the ordinance process going, so that by the time the offer deadline ends, we're going into a second hearing. So this isn't dragging out for many, many months. So those are like process questions. So there's not a lot to talk about when we talk. It's just more of like, how long, how do you want it out there? But it's still an ordinance process at the end. Did you want to say something else or that?
And the only thing I do not disagree with the idea of, creating a process for the mountain properties as like a standalone, but just remember, I mean, Enix is even unique within that situation because you don't own the land where those other reservoirs are located. That's a water sale only. It's very different. So just, bear that in mind as you're thinking about this.
I think the other thing I think that Matthew brought up in the past too was, as a policy for us, is if we're selling property, do we want to put, restrictions on that goes back into other developments or into other property purchases? Because I know we really haven't done that. It just goes into the general fund. Is that correct?
It goes wherever council designates it. I mean, but yeah, anything automatically goes back into the general fund.
Oh, I think that could be part of that discussion as well.
I don't think you'd want to hold future councils of where every sale goes, but when you sell, the council would decide where it could be.
It's like the TIF fees and stuff. It's for an area. It's not,
So what would we like staff to?
Yeah, I feel like
Together.
we're not giving you any direction.
Yeah, we haven't given you any direction. We went in a big circle to tell you nothing really.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, sir. Go back to what you were talking about.
I think
Just
that's
what
where
you
I
guys
stand
think
is
are
what
some
you told me, but
ideas.
It's just more specifics.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we all understand the ordinance process there. It's a great process. It's the legal process, but it's just the pre stuff. So I agree with what you were saying before and
Yeah.
suggest that. So I don't,
With hyper focus on Enoch, broader focus on mountain properties. And
Right.
I
Right.
feel like that's
That everybody
probably
feels
what we're
good about all
addressing.
that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We're good. Thank you.
That's all four, right?
That's all four.
All right, good. All right, now we're going to go into council reports and actions. Anybody want to start?
Yeah, I'll start.
All right. Ken.
And this is just off the cuff, and I apologize if anybody didn't want me to talk about this, but we have downtown is becoming more vibrant in the evening. And there tends to be lots of live music going on, which is great. We love it. But I wonder if any of the neighbors downtown are annoyed by live music every night and how loud it is. And I don't think we should be kicking out enforcement action, but a communication campaign may be in order to figure out, like, what's everybody think of this? Is there an issue? Do we need to talk to people about either setting noise volumes or putting up noise mitigation or just limiting the amount? I've heard murmurs. So, and I don't know if it's an issue because I don't have a decibel meter, but
Yeah.
I have been disrupted.
Do we have noise ordinance and
The state
how
does.
do, and
We
how
have-
do we monitor?
Yeah, we have the state noise ordinance, and then we have, there is there's a certain time of night that after a certain time of night, and I'm forgetting if it's 9 PM or 10 PM, but,
And yeah,
uh,
that was 10.
But
The state,
prior to 10 o'clock, there's no,
outside of,
We do have a sound permit that can be applied for and issued. The applicant has to describe the sound, the hours.
because I
Like the,
I
if it's
also have
whether it's
heard-
live music
yeah.
or a PA system or.
Yeah.
Or what have you, and then that goes to either, if it's in a city park, it goes to Mark Mancuso for approval. Any place else, it would go to Margaret for approval.
okay.
so the state,
those are typically used for house parties and things
Yeah.
like that, the sound permits and.
the state noise ordinance is residential area, but I don't know what, if that isn't residential, but it's 55 decibels from 7 AM to 7 PM and then 50 decibels after 7 PM. And that's measured from like the property line or 25 feet, stuff like that. I don't want to, I would like to avoid going there. I would more just like to have a conversation with the people that can sort of fix it before. And I don't know if that's us talking to them or what, but just,
I've also been hearing multiple murmurs of,
Well, this one's hard off the top of my head. Like, let us look
Sure,
back
yeah,
at
think
what we
about it.
have and then come back to you on what options there are.
Thanks, Ken.
Then you're gonna hate me, Ken, on this next.
Not a good segue.
Not a good segue.
Trying
Oh,
to do.
no,
Oh, thanks a lot, Kenny.
totally two different.
Wait, Ken's got the floor here. What else you got?
nothing else. Thanks.
All right, we're gonna move this direction. I think it's safe for Aaron to move your direction.
Just want to give a heads up with the museum. Kaya's contract was going to expire in the end of September, I believe it was. She's chosen to leave and she's been gone since last week. So there's no director at the museum. There's
All
the
of
whole museum direct, yes. So we were in we're accepting applications right now anyway for to replace her come the end of her contract. So it just came a little earlier, but apparently there are quite a few qualified candidates. So we're not hoping, we're not hoping to get something half decent, but we've got some really good ones. We have anyway, all realms of them, but we've got some good candidates that they're looking at right now. So currently, the assistant director is heading things up until we find a new one. So that's all I have.
Now here to, wait, who's smiling the least? No, James is.
Me and Matt are in on something together, but no, I have one thing.
Matt's excited about.
I reached out to Mike about this a couple of weeks ago, probably. I had noticed that the middle school had posted that they needed picnic tables, which we thought that we did this with them last year. But anyway, they saw that. So I figured it was a good opportunity to maybe reach out. I reached out to Mike and say, hey, do we have any access to the stuff that we had from COVID, which I think we already gave them last year. And then I also reached out to D51 to try and see if we could get access to there. The COO got back to me and wanted to have a meeting about it. And I tried to get a hold of Principal Johnston. Is that it? John Stone or Johnson?
Johnston.
I tried to reach out to him. He didn't answer that day. And then I left a voicemail. I never heard back from him. And then the COO guy got back to me. He's like, hey, you want to have this meeting? So I was trying to hear back from Principal Johnston to find out their exact need, because I wanted to, go to this meeting with, this is how many they need. Where can we get them? Especially since there's a school that closed, some things like that. I never heard back from him. On the way here today, I did look over and I noticed that there was a bunch of picnic tables. I don't know if they're new. So
They
maybe
were already there the day.
were they?
I took photos the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious if maybe it was it was already solved and that's why I hadn't heard from him. And I was going to just stop by Did they? Okay.
Had about 30 out there for 3
Yeah, it
years.
seemed like there's a bunch over there. So anyway, I was trying to help them behind the scenes and just kind of get it done without it becoming a thing, but
It's a thing.
it's a thing. Hopefully they have them, but that was something that I just wanted to do what we could do to help our middle school kids out, but we had to cancel our tourism because nobody was going to be there. So other than that, that's it.
All right, did you want to talk about your partnership with Matthew and what you
I'll
guys?
let Matt bring this bad boy out because it's his.
Go ahead, Matthew.
10:30 at night, text me.
I'm not going to start with that.
All right.
Totally nerdy. I'm excited I get to represent the city of Fruita next Wednesday with the consul generals from Japan, the UK, Mexico, Canada, and Taiwan. Totally nerding out.
Cool.
So excited about that. What we want to kind of bring up is apparently the state has some new grants for communities wishing to bring live music into the community. And apparently Colorado is one of the live music states in this country, and there is money available. And talking to Representative Soper, he thinks we'd be an excellent candidate for it and that we should jump on that opportunity. So for grant funding. So I'm just saying if we're going to do like a winter festival or something like that, it might be nice or not. I haven't read the grant, but what else?
Singing music.
I think we have to have the decibels a certain over.
I think it was only for AC/DC
Yeah.
cover bands. I don't know exactly what's in that.
But I think our ask would be if we could get enough of you in on it, we could direct staff to maybe look into that and see.
I think it would be a
Aggressively
cool
look into it
opportunity.
because it's
Yeah.
probably going to be one of those things that first to the trough's going to get fed.
And my understanding is they're looking at communities like in regions. So yeah, definitely.
I think probably a good start would be, yeah.
Like direction on where to go for those specifically or no?
Could they just reach out to Matt and?
It was kind of late when we were having this conversation. So not all the details may be crystal clear.
But you could get that
You
information.
just saw the
to
text
staff,
I got.
correct?
The text I got was real.
So you should be expecting
Informative.
some information.
All right, sounds.
Yeah,
Counselor
maybe
Freeman.
ask Matt. Yeah.
Don't let me text you at 10:30 at night with that.
Oh, no, please do anytime. It was very comical.
Anything else on your
Oh,
report?
sure.
Because Janine's biting at the bit here to get.
Yeah,
hers.
I just wanted to thank Deb, I think, who got us back the dark skies or like forwarded on the dark skies information. But I am interested in knowing more about what we can or cannot do in that regard. If we as a whole are interested in like seeing if there are things that we can do about our own light pollution and said things, I would be interested in continuing that conversation.
All that lighting recommendation is just like solid, good stuff. Like you need to see the ground. Like we historically had bad lighting. It just lit up everything. We don't need that. So our code does sort of discuss what types of lighting and stuff.
Yeah, on all new construction. Yeah.
I would maybe even be interested in considering
Program.
incentive program and maybe even like changing out said lighting if, phasing that in at some point, or just hearing about what that might look like, if that's ever even a possibility or consideration.
I think I remember we had one complaint from a neighbor. Mike probably remembers that, where it's shining into their
Yeah.
bedroom and it was really
Yeah,
bright.
yes,
light, so I
yep.
think
Yep.
I like the idea of kind of like even like the sidewalk program, some type of incentive to help.
Well, it's perfect that you talk about it too, because I don't know if any of you noticed last night, but it was very dark last night. And if you went out, you literally could see the Milky Way. And because of that conversation, I was very caught. I took my dog out literally at like 10:30 around our little pond, and it was super dark and you could see, and it was really making me think about that.
Well, I guess it'd be, since budget season's coming up, if there was some type of incentive program, we'd have to kind of direct staff to say, hey, what would that look like?
Do we have time this fall to look into it? There's I get what you're saying. I just don't know that we have
I don't
adequate.
have enough to do right now. I think.
No, I like.
That'd be a question on how
I guess to
long,
me,
right?
It seems like there's a timing issue with to get it into this next year's budget, but it's something to have.
Or you budget so many dollars and you say, okay, we'll work out the details.
Could also be an educational campaign.
Right.
Throw something, an article in the update, I forget what it's called. City. We have one at work and I was getting.
Just to
them all.
know, like what, just for us to know, like what are we doing already? What do we already have in place? That
How about we start there? What do we?
or at the new, like the code for the new, if you guys maybe give us a 5-minute update on,
Okay.
this is what we're already doing to address that, and that might kind of jog us a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then
I have a
also,
Sorry,
Go
I just
ahead, Janine.
don't want to.
Janine's got the floor.
I know. I don't forget to come to me.
Also, I had a request or a concern. Do we let the Fruita United Methodist Church know when streets are going to be closed? Because for like fall festival or a 5K race or any bike sort of thing, because typically like the events are usually over on Saturday, but the street might still be blocked off and then their parking is taken up. And it's my understanding that they haven't been alerted to when those things are happening. And I'm wondering if they are a forgotten piece of the puzzle.
So the event organizer's requirement in our permit process is that they notify. We don't do those notifications.
Okay, so what?
Except for
What if
our
it's
own,
our event?
our own events.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that they have to notify a certain distance around there, depending on what's closed. Yeah,
Fall Fest, for instance, would be the chambers.
yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we do anything? There was a city to help with mailing lists or anything like that with those kind of events in the past or no? Like, I know we are.
No, it's usually just,
Notify for.
it's usually like an in-person in the vicinity. Yeah, yeah.
Which may cause it to not,
Mhm.
that
Nobody.
Nobody.
they're not, I mean, actually someone is in there, but you would never know it.
Yeah, aside from like all the stuff we put out of when those events are, yeah, to the
Why?
public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I just told them I would ask because I was asked and I think that's all I have.
All right, well, I think Aaron has something else.
Okay,
Question.
and I do have one more
Question.
thing. The Heart of Fruita reception is on, is that what you were gonna talk about?
Well, related, yes, same night.
Yes, so many things that night, like
just wanna make sure
Matthew has his world thing. And the grand opening of the community hospital, that's the childcare thing, right? That's on the 13th, and the Heart of Fruita, all same time, same night. So yes, I will be down here.
That's what I was gonna bring up, just do we have coverage to those events? I know I'm going to the community hospital because I had a good inkling you would be at the Heart of Fruita. But anyway, I didn't know if anybody else is gonna go to the community hospital thing.
I don't know if I go with that, so.
I haven't made a decision.
Anyway, it sounds like we got coverage.
Yeah.
It's minimal, but it's there. That's all I wanted to bring up.
Somebody out there. All right, did I get into mine?
Mhm.
Mayor, can I have one more?
Is this under city managers? report?
No, it's not.
All right, Councilman, let's go.
But it's about you all. Dan reminded me, so I wasn't at the council meeting where you discussed the drones ordinance. Then there was direction to bring that back for a first reading, but present it again. But there were a lot of questions related to taking pieces out. In talking with the police department and what they can enforce, they feel like it's kind of minimal where it's at, or nothing. And so I'm just wondering, I just wanted to hear from you all what your direction was that night. Do you want us to bring it back? Do you want us to, but starting to take some more of those pieces out, they're feeling like would take away the ability to enforce almost anything. So I don't know what the,
So I don't know if it's possible to relook at that, but there was a specific part that I think we all eventually were like, yeah, we could take that out. But I specifically asked Officer Peck I'm not sure what his title is right now. If that was still enough teeth to enforce anything, and he said yes.
Okay, again,
You know, like specific parks,
Say parks.
Yeah, it was,
parks.
Yeah, instead of saying
it felt like,
Y,
it
Z,
felt like when he left, he knew exactly where we were.
But so
Is there a question
but the-
about it now?
if maybe it sounded like we wanted more than that, maybe that's the issue.
Looking at Shannon, does Shannon?
I'm looking at these two because I'm just getting
You
what.
have to come up to the microphone because you have.
I remember there was one where we get to like deem if the person is fit enough to. They're of sound mind to fly a drone, and I think that's you had.
I like, yeah, how's that? Who is it us to determine?
Well, but if they're drunk or if they're, I mean, there's other impairments if they're.
So,
impaired.
sorry, I didn't mean to have a new discussion on it. I was trying to get it scheduled and there is confusion among the staff of what to do. So I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah.
I really, I mean, I asked that specific question
Because
that was the main thing. Like, do you feel like you have enough teeth to still do something?
Did you happen to look at the minutes from that? Because I really feel like they walked away and we were all pretty.
But I do want, yeah. I want to say if he does not, then no, I don't
So
want to do.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that the people here that presented did not, were, maybe you can say it. I wasn't here, so I was trying to.
The real concern was, it seemed like there was at least from the enforcement side for civil related complaints and for criminal related complaints. So like there was a lot of talk of like, well, because it would be under the general penalties of the municipal code. And so we felt like part of the reason that we wanted to go down the kind of municipal code route with regards to a civil complaint is that we didn't have that burden of proof of intent. And that was the big kind of lens. But then there was a lot of conversation about what people would just be in violation of the law immediately if they flew a drone on a trail or in a park. People felt that consternation around being harassed. So we did not at all in the ordinance create a bar for that, which I believe was Councilmember Hansey's consternation around the ordinance in general, is that it could kind of ebb and flow with reaching farther when like maybe the intent of the ordinance originally was really just to protect people's private property and fence lines and things of that nature. And so we walked away from that with really like a strong desire, or not desire, but a strong feeling from the staff that like you're talking about being able to prove that somebody is harassing someone. And so if they flew up a drone 15 feet, and really was just innocent, it was in the backyard, the ordinance would say that you would be in violation of that if you were actually taking any sort of surveillance picture of the monument or whatever. Or really for lack of a better saying, there was like some kid at Prospector Park that flew his drone over the fence line would be in violation. They're already in violation of the FAA regulations if they do that, because you can't lose line of sight of your drone. So I think that less so like the guts of like what you all wanted. I think that Councilmember Williams is spot on. We had really great direction on what it is that you want us to do. But I don't know if we have total consensus around the language that gets us there, because we're kind of miring between the policy related discussions that we've had about what we want our enforcement to be, that we wouldn't be looking out there for people that are doing these things. But again, like we've got federal laws on the books with the FAA that said that if you go over somebody's fence line or you lose like line of sight with a drone, that's against the law. Does it get enforced? No. Would we have the same law? Yes. But I mean, there was a lot of discussion about like, somebody's breaking the law, if they're doing that. That was talked about, at length. And we went through, I think, a list of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we wanted to take out about half that stuff. I mean, that was a big part of the session.
Dan, I think the majority of where we were all kind of landing on it was that we wanted kids to be able to go to a park and fly their little drone if they got one for Christmas or whatever. And I think also, and again, I'm speaking for myself, but I do kind of think the consensus was that it would stop someone from being in a residential area flying over their neighbors' homes.
Unless they had a
To-
license.
Yeah, unless they're supposed to, a realtor is doing a thing, but
Sure. There was,
to-
those were.
but I think that really the nuts and bolts of it were to make it so that for the recreational, for lack of a better term, of taking your drone out to Little Salt Wash or to one of the other parks in town, just flying it around, you wouldn't have to worry about that. But at the same time, give the police a little bit of teeth in case somebody was in a residential neighborhood and was flying their drone over people's houses and doing stuff that was bothering them. And I know I'm really simplifying it, but I think really that's really what it came down to. At least that was what I was wanting.
So I guess that I think that's a perfect segue into this conversation because essentially we would write an ordinance that would prohibit that from happening unless we had those kind of safeguards where you had permission or like you were some sort of commercial enterprise. But it would just be against the law to do that. Not have anything to do with anybody's intent.
Yeah.
Or that would just strictly be against the law. So that would be the only way we could actually regulate that behavior through fines or penalties.
When it gives something that could be enforced.
Yeah, well, I guess that
It's a complaint based. And that's kinda like what we do
Yes.
for
Yeah.
weeds and everything else is it'd be more complaint based than it would be, hey, I'm
That addresses what the overall issue was.
that's what the individual that came and spoke before the council, I believe, in public participation section of the agenda kind of spoke to.
I think it's a privacy issue more than anything.
It's my understanding, and I may be wrong. I think something happens this month where all drones have to emit an identification, so you could, oh, that drone is.
That's a new federal regulation.
Jim Johnson at 407. And I suspect that things will be more enforceable at that point. And people may be exploring generating new code and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if maybe just hold off, because we've had one complaint.
Yeah.
It was a pretty serious complaint.
Mhm.
it was in my neighborhood, I would be.
You can make an ordinance, HOA, depending on who's running it, it's just gonna do whatever they want.
I guess though, the other thing that, again, this is a better, just the messenger here, this is a better, question for PD, but I really think that we should not confuse the civil related complaints versus the criminal related complaints. And there's kind of this sort of blurred lines, I think, as far as like who you think would be responding to the calls and who do you think would be actually enforcing that ordinance. So a lot of times with weeds and junk and we are the ones that, from a code enforcement standpoint, that would actually, lodge those complaints and start to enforce those actions. The police, outside of like the vehicles in public right of way, I mean, they're usually going after criminal related actions, not necessarily civil related actions. At least that's how it's written in many of the ones that we've explored. So I think that part of the confusion isn't about what you want us to do. It's about like, I think we're using these like kind of this terminology a little bit like interchangeably when it's not. I mean, like we're not probably going to go to district court or we're going to have, a court of your peers unless there's a harassment type case that the PD would be there for. I mean, we're typically going to threaten enforcement by fines or other means. In a civil related space.
But the complaint that came to us would be more of a harassment.
100%, but if everybody recalls, Lieutenant Peck said like
Very hard.
really difficult to get those suckers across the finish.
So in a roundabout way, if we work on the civil way, it kind of gives us enough teeth to kind of address the issue if it pops up.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of articulating it.
Right? I mean, at least it's there. It gives them something, because I mean, really, that's what Peck was talking about, is that they just don't have anything to enforce. So that's really all they needed from us, was just something that if a situation arose like again, that they would have something to look at and go, okay, look, this is what it says. this is what we're not happy about what you're doing. This is your warning, or this is, you know, whatever it is to negate that moving forward.
Again,
I don't think it needs to be as complicated maybe as they did on it.
If that's the will of the council, I totally understand where you're going with that. I just want, again, you'd have a single purpose action that you are just going to prohibit. And from where I was sitting, and I was sitting in the back, about 50% of the conversation was about intent, you know, of what somebody's trying to do, you know, whether it's a kid that got a Christmas present or somebody that's walking their dog and has a drone. I mean, there was a lot of like, you know, kind of maybe one-off examples that were mentioned that would discount, I think, this body from saying that is really truly somebody trying to invade somebody's privacy or harassing them. You know, I think we're just like groupthink up here, wondering all or surmising all of the different examples that could take place, but you'd be prohibiting that action, period.
Well, it sounds like, do we need to take this to a workshop to talk further about it? And I guess I'm confused of like, how do we enable the police to do certain aspects to enforce? And I'm more confused because they're confused now, because I thought we made headway, but I kind of am leaning towards that there's definitely, we shouldn't rush to do something that's bad for the community. I think default is we slow it down and take it to a workshop. And if we feel that we can make some progress and with it, we can look to move forward. Otherwise, dead.
Yeah, I think that's that is definitely a way that we could pursue this if we wanted to add things back in. I think that from the staff's perspective, as we thought about it after the meeting and discussed it, if your expectation is for us to make contact with an individual that might have, you know, violated somebody's privacy or respond to those calls, we're doing that right now. You want us to fine them? Like,
Can't do that, right?
we're gonna struggle doing that. And that was the delineating factor. We're still gonna go, you know, whether it's
We do.
Say we as
I
in
think we
police.
do want,
Yeah.
I think we do want the fine aspect involved.
If
In,
it's,
in an escalation though, like a warning and then, you know.
Well,
again, though, I mean,
I
that's
don't
gonna,
know about
we'll
that.
be prohibiting.
I think we're up for a workshop at some point to discuss this.
It sounds like there's more discussion needed.
But yeah, especially like I'm curious about the criminal side and then the civil side and looking at that.
My only problem with putting it to workshop, and I know that this is gonna suck, I'd like to get this issue put to bed and move on from it. And I know that we have a lot kind of other things we're working on, but I would be nice to get it done. So if we are gonna do in a workshop, we should probably get it in one soon. But yeah, we gotta get the issue fixed.
I want to do it right or not at all.
Or could we just ask the PD to look at it and I mean, I know they already did. But
Communicate with
whatever
us.
the draft is that you came away with after after our discussion, and they even say, does this leave you, or maybe you've already had this discussion, so I apologize if you are, but does this give you the chance to fine people for this or not? And if the answer is no, then we need to relook at it. If the answer is yes, then I think.
I don't think we ever had this conversation about civil versus criminal.
No.
Nope.
Oh, we didn't.
So, and I think that's where our confusion's coming in.
Yeah.
But I also think knowing what the FAA regulations are could be helpful, because could we reference that?
You mean like the newer one?
Well, do you need to, like, do we need to have a local,
It sounds like there's September 16th is when they kick in. That you have to have a location beacon that can either come from the drone.
Yeah, but if we just reference FAA guidelines are part of our ordinance, we do that all the time with state statutes or, you know.
We don't have to recreate the FAA. It's only additional things that you want in the city.
Right.
Right, but I'm saying we don't even know what the FAA like restrictions are, I think, and that's part of
I
that.
think we talked about that at our meeting. We could
send a formal complaint to the FAA with these problems, and it's up to them and how long they're gonna take to actually respond to it.
Yeah, and we want it to be more like
want
something.
fights
that we can-
locally from
yes,
police.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to have further discussion. I want to understand civil versus criminal. And if we do not have it within our schedule to get it done this year, we might need to push it to early next year. But I think it's just something that if we're going to be impacting the community with enforcement type things, we need to do it right. And
This is an emerging issue, and I'm sure that CML or somebody at some point, it's gotta
Yeah.
be.
Well, we utilized other cities to put what we brought to you together. Yeah.
so it's just, I think it's more of, do we want to put it to a workshop and when do we want to have that? And it seems like we have a lot on our plate the rest of this year that we can ask staff to look at it, but can we give it adequate conversation and consideration now, or do we need to?
Because I feel like we're this close to just
Yeah.
being done with it.
I don't know. I'm back to square one.
Well, I think that it's not as heavy.
No, I'm not,
as
yes,
what we're
it's not.
saying. I think.
Well,
10 hours of
closer than we-
discussion,
What
but
I'm hearing is, we really are not worried about the criminal side of it. We're worried more, about, hey, how do we do, the penalties and fines? Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Please
hearing.
don't fly over my property without my.
I agree. I
It's
think
established now, though. Property rights exist now. If you fly a drone over someone's house, is that not
You still
violation of
you have to
property
approve-
rights?
You have to approve their intent, I mean.
Right.
But I mean, again, you don't have to prove their intent if it's just against the code.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right, we want to not have to
Yeah, we don't.
prove the intent.
right.
That's kind of
They
the,
can
I
just
think
take it
that's,
to a park and we're giving them an option of where they can do it and where they can't. And I know that sucks to tell somebody what they can't do, but at the same time, when you're impeding on someone else, then what you're doing isn't cool.
And it'd be on a complaint basis. It's not.
Exactly. It's
We
not
can
like,
limit that discussion that
yeah,
we
and at
have.
the, I mean, somebody could go, hey, dude, can you maybe not fly your drone over my house? And that would be step one.
Right.
Okay, he's doing it again. Okay, I'm gonna have to call. And the cops come out. Hey, dude, we
Well,
asked you.
What can that be if it starts to be that way? But when I say I'm back at zero, I'm not saying if we need to start a 10-hour conversation, but it seems like we're just starting, to me, it's like we're backtracking that hour that we spent already, because I think there's more to talk about, I
I
think.
think we're like, I agree, with Jane.
Yeah, I think it's.
I don't know where everybody else is. I
simplistic
think we're-
Yeah, I'd rather not wait I don't wanna.
So
What were you thinking with it, Mike? What?
So my original, originally what we were thinking was that we're bringing it back for a first reading with a presentation, not a normal first reading. And that we were going to remove like one part.
Yeah.
But that's it. But when we were trying to schedule it, there were a lot of questions that I was getting, and that's why I brought it up tonight.
Why don't we move forward with the way you were gonna do it and then
I mean, I think that was the direction of the group on the meeting I was gone, was bring it back for a first reading with a presentation.
Is everybody?
Yeah.
And I think Dan asked, or somebody, or Shannon asked, do we do a workshop? And you all said, no, bring it back for a first reading.
Do you have a good idea if I read something to you? If where this falls under, this is part of what you guys brought to us the first time, or the second time, the most recent time. No,
Which is it?
the most recent time. No person shall enter, hover, land, or otherwise operate an unmanned aircraft system on or over another person's private property without the prior consent of the property owner. Such unauthorized entry onto another's property shall be deemed a trespass. Is that teeth for the PD, or do you know?
that would cover it, wouldn't it?
I mean,
Why Mary Elizabeth is on this one.
Well, I mean, I don't think I was at that meeting.
I appreciate that.
I feel like that addresses it right there, because if they don't have permission to be over someone's house.
That's why I'm asking.
Well, and my question is it not already a violation of your property rights that someone's trespassing?
Well, no, evidently.
Depends. Maybe
because
an
that's
air
why
is
we
different.
weren't able to do anything last time.
so
Because of it.
So I think this is the crux, and this is what I'm hearing from the staff, is if that is removed, we have nothing.
We don't want that removed.
If,
Want that in there.
I don't know that that was a concern. The other aspects were a bigger concern, I know for me, but
Park was a
Yeah.
big part.
This
I
is
think,
not
I
asking
think
you-
to, I think
this is just
to,
saying if they do something,
I think to your question is that already, it's
Oh, I
only
see.
if you can prove intent, and we're rarely gonna be able to pull that off.
That does
It's
nothing to do
about
with intent.
This is just.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
Counselor Hansi just asked, isn't that already something, right?
Only has.
And what Dan and the police were trying to say is, yes, it's already something, but you have to prove the intent of why they were over.
current
This
statute.
is just, you're over or you're not over, and that's what we can do.
This is giving more teeth to it. Instead of saying, you're acknowledging that there's already existing laws that protect property rights,
And
but it
not-
doesn't,
Like, not our laws, but
Yeah,
yes,
yes.
yeah.
but this gives more meat to it. And you're saying it did or didn't happen. There's the civil. That's a civil violation.
So this would, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but this would mean if we left that in, that like code enforcement could give warnings and give fines. This would not be the police department, just like we do with weeds and stuff.
That's what we want.
See, that's not,
That's what we want, is that.
that's not the biggest. I think we're all in agreement that
And
if you do.
then
do
my
that-
understanding was it's okay to fly in parks.
But we needed that worded better because it said only a few, but we wanted it to be pretty much any park.
Yeah.
I think, isn't that what we had thought?
But
Yeah.
I think they were
That-
trying to be
I think
That you
that
careful.
can't
was
fly in
something-
any park. You
Yeah.
don't want to mention specific. It's just. any-
No, we wanted it to just be city park. That was a big change. And I think though,
It
that-
can't
this
be, it
cover it.
can't be public right of way. Like that does not, that would mean numerous parcels that,
no, we just said parks.
Not roads.
No, not roads. It was
We
just
did talk
parks.
About taking that one out too, but that's fine.
'Cause that was a conversation of
I don't
taking
think, I
time
don't
and
think
flight
we
over
were on a
there.
huge.
So does that give clear direction? Is that? Or Mike still looks a little,
so I think it gives us enough to bring something back.
Okay.
Sounds like you all might
That's
not be,
paragraph.
yeah.
It's other.
It was-
It's-
I like the way that
That's-
paragraph's worded. That
Uh-huh.
approaches it
that's like
perfectly.
3 or 4 paragraphs into one, and then.
Paragraph's perfect. Good job,
And
Janine.
then it was just the discussion of.
That's the paragraph that we want.
Allowing drones to be flown in parks, not just specific ones to just say,
Side conversation.
um, so that's, I don't think there was any hiccup with that paragraph that Janine written up. It was just other aspects. We wanted to see some condensing. Like 3 or 4 paragraphs into one, and then also, that they can be flown at city parks. If it's safe.
Yeah.
Is my more thing is just not to.
I
impede on
think,
people's
I
rights.
think,
Are good.
yeah.
Looking at the ordinance right now, and granted, like I just was involved in the crafting of this at the very outset, but there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay? A is like nobody can fly a drone to endanger somebody else's life. Nobody can fly a drone over city property of public rights or public streets, alleys, trails, open space, including but not limited to parking lots and public buildings without his or his designees.
Approval.
And then the rest of them are, you can't do it to harass anybody. You can't do it under the influence of alcohol, and you can't do it if you are experiencing any physical or mental condition. You can't do it near somebody that's riding a bike or a motorist or livestock or animals. And you can't hover, or you can't, no person shall enter, hover, land, or otherwise operate an unmanned aircraft system on or over somebody's private property. And Janine just read that one. So when we talked about, we want to condense 3 into 1. We wanted to take one significant one out. I'm having a hard time understanding which one that is.
So is the harass part, the part that's.
What night was that? Was that the 15th of August?
Yeah, and then there was we deep 6 number 1, which was the exemption for the parks. And we just, instead of listing them, we did park.
There was, I remember Counselor Hansi, when it was the mental or physical condition.
Yeah, it was the C that I.
And that argument comes out when, you're talking about prohibiting people from doing things. You say you're not mentally fit to do that. And a lot of people have a hard time with that. So that may be a sticking point for.
And the burden of proof on that one, I think probably would be a tough one. But
Yeah.
To be there.
Well, I
So it
think
should be more like.
as I recall, I think E was.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
We were just saying that's too vague.
So I think that that is the one that we asked to be taken out, E.
So, yeah, I think that
The rest would stay.
it's not a problem, but
But so the question is, if we took that one out, do you have enough direction to bring back the revised one for the first reading? Or
So
not?
can we, I'm stealing from somebody else's. No person shall operate a UAS who is under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, or more controlled substances as defined by Article 18 of Title 18
Yeah,
of the Colorado Revised Statute, and just leave it at that.
yeah, that's what I was saying. I think we had.
D.
Take E out.
that is D.
No,
And-
no, not that one. We want to leave that one. I
D
think we-
will,
I think we requested to take E out, which was the physical mental condition.
Yeah.
That's it. And then take.
Well, don't you think-
Change the parks to not specific and.
Isn't C what's kind of causing the problem though, because you have to do the intent and all that stuff? So C needs to go out. Well, that's what the, yeah, because you have to prove intent.
It's not
That's
keep
the
G
C.
in. We have G and C, it's fine.
Well, then why do we even need to have C?
I think that, so, again, I think this is a really great example. If you just want an ordinance that says you can't fly a drone over somebody's fence line, we'll take it out. But like when I read those and I've read other sections in the municipal code, I mean, it is kind of wordy and it's there to encapsulate all different circumstances that you might be faced with. And if that's too vague and you don't feel like you have a good idea of how it's going to be enforced, it usually begs the question of whether or not it's something that you want to make a policy decision on. So I think that's kind of where we were at with the whole scenario, which is part of the reason why I think we're a little confused what the intent behind it is. And if there's unanimity amongst the council to have us pursue a fence line related drone ordinance, like we can certainly do that.
My brain is trying to figure out if I want to say this. I've known of HOA disputes where somebody's like, their dog is doing this. Well, it's not doing it now. Get some video. Got a video. He's videotaping in my backyard. And so the police are brought in to try to, and the people try to give them teeth to, we may not be able to solve HOA disputes by making ordinances. I don't know if this is a big enough issue yet to make a policy. That's my own personal opinion. We're this close, you're right.
I mean,
I'm just like.
I wish you didn't know how to word that. No. But yeah, I think we're this, I put it this way, if you're talking about invading somebody's private property, I don't think we can go wrong. That's where I say this, because it doesn't take out the HOA. It's not HOA, it's an individual
property.
doing, video. And so they just happen to be the HOA president or whoever it is, that's their role. But that's where I say, I think Janine hit it right on the head with, that's the main paragraph. and-
that main paragraph.
Mhm. So is there more intent than that we're interested in? That's the question.
So I think, I mean, I think this I think we need to have the conversation when we're considering it, and we can bring that to you, and it might just have a little more than some of you want, and then you'll have to have that discussion and see if it belongs or not.
There you go. That sounds
it's another draft.
What was good is helping us understand, realize criminal versus civil.
Yes.
All
We
right.
can approach that way
Right,
when we do this.
When we do that. All right.
Because we didn't do that. We didn't know that before.
The only thing I'd clarify, is this a first reading or is this a draft to just present?
I think we should draft.
Wait, who's got a first reading?
If we have it as a first draft and we make significant changes
You can make changes.
The final.
up till, great, then have it a first draft,
First reading.
Okay.
but not in consent agenda.
No.
Not on consent, right?
No, yeah, it'll be a presentation and discussion. Yeah.
I'm game for that.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Another one, Mike, that was 5. All right. Can I get into my 2 that I want to get feedback from council? He's
We'll
like,
allow-
"Oh."
we'll allow it this time.
So,
Yeah.
this is good and bad. So having to sit in the back of the room watching a council meeting was a little different on that. And so I had a couple things that I gleaned from that I wanted to bring to council and just get some feedback on what you wanted. So I think announcing not to clap before the meeting was awesome. I think the clapping after the meeting was inappropriate. Because I think it was celebrating us voting no against somebody that brought something to us. And so my mind had had time to think about this, is that our proclamations and presentations are the times when we clap and we reward people. When we're talking about a public hearing. And I'm thinking, and I'm gonna be honest, Matthew's sitting here and he voted yes, everybody else voted no, and then all of a sudden, everybody's clapping saying, woohoo, we voted no. We all, we let the audience say that, and it's saying, hey, Matthew, your vote didn't count because, I just think it sets a poor tone for us as council to say, hey, let's celebrate something that we're not gonna have 100% buy-in on this. And the people that were clapping and applauding it weren't even really related to that ordinance. I mean, that ordinance was about selling the property. So that was one of the things that I gleaned from that. And so I kind of want to we do have a, policy. What is it, Mike? Our,
You have a
conduct and-
norms of conduct and rules of procedure. You have rules of procedure for the council meeting.
Right. It doesn't really say that, but my feeling is when we have a public, hearing, it's like, I personally don't want to, but again, it's not me making that decision. It's this board sitting here saying, hey, when is the appropriate time to celebrate and not celebrate?
And so we shouldn't encourage one way.
We shouldn't encourage, we should be able to, at the end of the meeting, say, hey, we appreciate everybody being here. And this, we're glad to see the community involvement and feedback. And if we're gonna have future community discussions, then we'll make sure we let that be known on that, just like we said at that meeting. Okay, we're gonna schedule at the end of that meeting, we're gonna schedule for the 19th to talk about policies and procedures. So that way the people that stayed knew, hey, we're gonna wait till that. So that was one thing I kind of wanted to get feedback from council on, what the thoughts were on that. That's just me sitting in the back and, I just all of a sudden cringed when I heard laughing, because I was like, wait a minute, this wasn't even what the hearing was about. Selling the property, about, hey, we got our way. So that's where I came from. Ken has
I agree that we could create, post, relay, our expectations or common decency, but I don't know that I want to tell people they can't be happy, say yeehaw, clap their
I don't
hands.
think we should be encouraging it.
Did we encourage it?
So
Yes.
this particular instance, the
one of the
Mayor
counselors.
Kincaid had already said how it was gonna go, and it went that way the whole time, and then afterward it was like, oh, what, no.
You can
no
clap now.
celebration or whatever now.
Yes, one council member did say you guys can celebrate now. And that I would just say from a process standpoint, that kind of harms the process when it's a public hearing and, it's not a winner and a loser. That's not, the point of the public hearing. It's you guys making a decision on something that's in front of you.
Okay. I thought we were talking about something else. Got it.
Well,
You don't want to police. You don't want to police.
Yeah, I don't think we can control people's.
We don't want to.
But I agree. Okay, understood.
So that's where I was coming from. So I want to bring that up. The other one I want to bring up is addressing the people that are here. And I think some of the things that are posted in the paper, were inaccurate based on, feedback they got from here. And so I think part of our job as a council is, hey, we vote on things, we make decisions, and then it's portrayed in one voice to the public. And so I think that's one thing that, I saw at that meeting was, okay, I think part of the email that we got today was because of that kind of misunderstanding of conversation compared to final action. And so I think part of it is we need to be careful that when we're asking questions, people come to give us their feedback. They get 3 minutes, they get up and they talk and they tell us that, but we're really not addressing them individually. We're asking staff, we're asking Mary Elizabeth, hey, what are, some of these scenarios, and report back to us to make those decisions, and not, specifically addressing, people in the audience, because I saw some of that too. And so I think moving forward, and this is my opinion, is everything we do is a learning experience. And I think we're doing a great job of, addressing the public and listening to the public and all that, but we also have to be aware that we have to come through in one voice and I think that's one thing that Fruita Council does better than some of the other councils in the valley. We won't name any names, is that we are unified in how that voice comes across. So that was the only other thing that I picked up on that meeting that I just wanted to share with council, because I feel like there's always things we can do to step up our game and be the best city in the valley. And those are the two things that I just saw being an outsider for this that I want to bring up. So I don't know if there's any other questions for me or comments that.
There was also parts of that meeting towards the end where we were having a conversation with staff and the audience wanted more information. And I feel like I don't know if we can anticipate that enough to say, ahead of time, this is, public participant. We do say that it's done, but sort of say, and please don't join in the conversation after this point. Not part of the process, because they definitely want
I think some of the challenge was at certain points, like Joel said, we were addressing the audience and not that, and that kind of opens up.
The dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of the part of the decorum where we were having discussions, and of course we want to we want the audience and the community to hear that. And it's a natural draw to address them, but it was a special experience or a certain type of experience that we have that doesn't happen very often. Thank goodness that it's not in the aspect of like tensions and blood pressure. It was a great experience for the community involvement. Love that. We'll take that every day. But yeah, I think it's something that we, as we go forward and have different situations, like tonight's not one of those blood pressure evenings. But anyway.
Yeah, I think
Like you said, Mayor, live and learn, move on, and we'll see how it goes for next time. And like it was effective to make the announcements at the beginning. I think that helped to have higher level of civility than when the meeting was first started, not the continuance of it. But yeah, live and learn, and we're doing great.
I agree with I agree. I think that you're spot on, and I'm fine with those moving forward, that taking that feedback. And it is like, even still being new, it is one of the hardest parts to not engage. Like, you want the people to, it's so unnatural. It's really unnatural to not want to engage and let the people know that they've been heard, and have back and forth is what we humans do normally.
Well, I think part of that addressing would be, hey, one of the comments I heard was this, so staff or Mary Elizabeth, it's not individualizing
I'm not
anybody.
disagreeing. I think that's just a practice on our part to understand, okay, I can't speak directly to them. This is the way I engage with them. I bring up a question that they brought to and ask it to the staff or to Mary Elizabeth. We redirect it in that way. And that is in this platform, that is how we have a conversation with the public. And it's just, I think it's a learning curve, because it's not natural. Right. It's not the natural way that we behave, but I do think it's the appropriate way.
It's decorum, yeah.
To behave in this.
So like I said, this is, to me, it's been 11 plus years of learning stuff. And so, I just want to make sure, and I talked to Mike a little bit about it. I want to leave my position here in better condition than when I started, that's my goal. And so I got 7 more months for me to preach it, you guys. Because I feel it's all a training process. I mean, it is, and I've learned so much over this, and Ken will attest, he's probably learned a few things, right? So that's where I want to come from. I want to treat this as a learning process where we're gonna grow and we're all gonna keep us moving in that right direction. So, that's all I've got. So I don't know if anybody else has anything else. Ken's like, no. All right, with that, then we've got the next item on our agenda, which we're gonna have to have a motion to move into executive session for regarding personnel issues under CRS section 24640224F for the city attorney's annual formal review.
I can read that. I move to convene an executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS section 24640224F and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion matter in open session, any member of the body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body, or the elected official or personnel policies that do not require discussion of matters personnel or to particular employees, the city attorney's formal review.
Do we have a second? All right, we've got
People to sleep already.
first. We have a first, a second. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Freeman,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams, Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Or does anybody need a 5-minute break or no? Yes, no?
Let's just crank